Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Express, which is becoming everyone's favorite talk show. It is profoundly real and interesting, so without any further delay, please help me welcome back to the stage the beautiful and expressive director of Express, Carolyn. Carolyn, take it away.
Good evening, everyone. Can you believe it? It's time again. Here I am with Express. I'm your host, Carolyn, and without you, the people, I couldn't be here. So I'm so glad that you took the time to come and listen. And as you listen each day, each week, I hope and I pray that you will find a lesson there somewhere. But remember to share, to like, and to subscribe. For those who have been with us from ever since, thank you so much for being here with us. And for those who have just stopped by, maybe someone sent you, or maybe you were just going through YouTube and you stopped here, please don't go because you are going to be blessed today. So before I go any further, though, I would like to welcome my guest. He says he's brother, but I call him doctor because he's so good at what he does. God has blessed him. So where he has brother, I'm going to put doctor because God has helped him to get to this stage with so much experience. Now, Dr. Mamon Wilson has been the founder of Centurion Bible School of Health. He is married to Charlene Wilson and has dedicated his life to this ministry for 51 years. He, along with other staff members, provide medical missionary training as the primary focus, along with mental, physical, and spiritual therapies. Dr. Wilson depends upon the Lord for his leading, following the blueprints of the Bible and the spirit of prophecy. Without further delay, let us have Dr. Mamon Wilson in the studio. Let us clap for him. Yes, Dr. Mamon Wilson. Listen, I am absolutely honored to have you here today. I know you could be so many other places, but you choose to come, and I want to tell you thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And as we have this conversation today, I have no doubt that whoever is listening will be blessed. So let us get started.
Man,
So, how are you today, sir?
the Lord is blessing me. I'm down in God's beautiful country out here in the Atlantic Ocean and Trinidad, and working between Trinidad and Barbados, which is about 35 minutes apart. I fly over to Barbados and I fly back to Trinidad. So we're over here doing a training school. We're setting up a health center out in Trinidad, and also working with some patients here in Barbados.
Okay. Okay, great. Great. We're going to come to this again. But let me tell you, where were you born?
I was born in Memphis, Tennessee. That's in the southern part of the United States. Yeah, that's what I call home, Memphis, Tennessee, midway
Tennessee.
between uh, Nashville and
Okay.
Memphis.
Let me ask you, what do you like best about Tennessee?
Well, I never really wanted to live in Tennessee. I always wanted to live somewhere else, and this is what God put me, and this had worked out. But I do like Tennessee from the standpoint that a lot of the freedom. There's a lot of freedom here,
Yes,
and there's a
yes.
lot of opportunities. Land is very reasonable. Housing is very reasonable. The
Wow.
climate is just beautiful. I mean, we only have about 2.5 months of winter. We have 4 growing seasons, so it's really inviting to live in a pleasant part of the South. I love it from that perspective.
Okay, okay. So, your mom and dad, who is deceased, yes,
Yes, both my
were
parents,
they from Tennessee?
they were. Yes, they are. My father resided in Los Angeles. My mother, she was born and raised in Tennessee, but they both originally was born in Memphis. Yes,
Okay, okay. So you are the only child
I'm the only child by my mother.
by
Yes.
your mother. Okay,
Hmm.
okay. Now, there's something about you, Mr. Doc, that I really, really admire. There's something about you. You have a calm spirit, and you are very approachable. You're very humble. And tell me, where do you think you got that disposition from? Your parents, or did you gradually grow into being that type of person?
I guess after I know I wouldn't always. This is not my natural disposition. I think after working many years with seriously, seriously ill patients,
Mm-hmm.
and it taught me to be very sensitive to other people's pains and wants and needs.
Mm-hmm.
And so God kind of revamped my whole character. You cannot be aggressive with somebody gasping for their last breath. And so my life is surrounded with that. So, yes, I think it evolved into that through character development.
Okay. Now, this great work that you found yourself doing, because I know I've heard you give your testimony before. This great work that you're doing, it just didn't just happen like that. Give us an idea how it happened. What did you used to do before? Um, and how did you really evolve? So I won't ask you any questions for a little while. Just tell us, how did it get started?
Well, it actually got started when I was a young child, when I was about 9 years old. My mother came down with breast cancer, and she was in the hospital. And I went up to see her, and soon after that, I met the doctor, and he came in the room, and I asked him, could he fix my mother's problem? And he told me, son, this can't be fixed. And eventually, her mother died, and I'll never forget it. As a young lad, I made a vow that one day I would find a cure for cancer and that no other mother would have to suffer this horrible disease. But I really forgot about that. I was born with a gift as an artist, and I went to college and to be a professional artist. I wanted to be a fine artist. I wanted to be a sculptor, a painter. I wanted to be Michelangelo, Da Vinci, and Picasso all rolled up into one. And so I evolved my life in trying to perfect the trade of being a professional artist. I was possessed with it to the point that everything in my life was art. And I learned all the different periods of art. I studied art. And I breathed and ate it. But um, so I went to college and I graduated from there, and I got a job working for Sanyo, a Japanese company. And from there, I made a lot of money. I was very successful. I lavished myself on a lot of worldly things, and I bought the really nice cars and clothes, and uh, I bought a limousine Thunderbird. It was really a beautiful automobile, and it had leopard skin interior, Sonic music, polar bear interior, and so I was out riding on a Friday evening, listening to music, and I saw a girl, a comely looking girl, had a handful of books. And I thought, well, maybe I hit on her. That was the word back then, and uh, I thought I had a lot going for me, because I had done this many times before. And I pull up and I let the windows down and I said, hey, Mama, I sure like to go with you. And she said, come on, you can go with me. And immediately I thought, man, this is going to be easy. And so I followed along with her walking. She got to the house and she told me to get out and come in. And I was amazed how easy this was. And so I followed her in the house. And when I opened the door, there was a room full of people having a Bible study on a Friday afternoon. And so I took a seat and I listened to them, and I was totally lost. The only Christianity that I knew was Christmas and Easter, when you got your new pair of shoes or dress or
Mm.
something, you went to church. That's it.
Yeah.
But sat there and listened to people expound on the scriptures, that was totally new to me. And after it was finished, the girl asked me, "Would you like to see me again?" And I told her, "Yeah, I sure would." So she invited me to church, to Longview Heights Seventh-day Adventist Church. And so I went. And I got my friend, I forgot, I went with my friend Curly. He was named Curly Q. And he lived in Memphis to this day. And I asked him to go with me. So he told me, he said, "Rainbow, what are you doing, man?" That's what they call me, Rainbow. He said,
Rainbow.
"Rainbow, what you doing, man? You dating a black Jew?" I said, "Don't matter," because I didn't know what she was.
Right.
So we went to church that Saturday at the Adventist church, and we were sitting there looking at all the beautiful women, and I said, "Man, they got all the good-looking women up in here." And eventually, I listened to the man, and I listened to Pastor Willis. That was Pastor Willis, and then he was preaching, and I told Curly to shut up, man, and listen to the man. I really got impressed by that man's ability to expound the word and open up things that I had never heard before. And so after the church service, this girl gave me a handful of books. One of them was Great Controversy, the other was Steps of Christ and Minister Healing. She said, "Read these books." And I did. I took those books home and I was studying those books. Now, to give you an idea of the perspective I were,
Mm-hmm.
I had two apartments. I had an apartment for when I was, a regular corporate, successful businessman. I mean, I had a good job, and I dressed accordingly. But I had another apartment with a friend of mine. I rarely, and so I would pick this girl up, and she would come over to my straight apartment, and we would study and look at the. I was introduced from studying these books to a man that I had never met before, and that was Jesus Christ. He was the doctor and the preacher. And from that moment, when I discovered he was more doctor than preacher, it reminded me of my commitment that when I was 9 years old, that I wanted to be a doctor. And the more I studied, the more I was determined I wanted to be like him. So I committed my life to understand the nature of disease and the treatment of disease. And God impressed on my heart, he said, "Look, if you would take on the most serious, incurable diseases, there'll be a field of labor for you everywhere." And I didn't understand that. I wanted to do this work, but I didn't want to take on the most difficult cases. But he did. He inspired me to do it. From that day to this day, I've taken on some of the most incurable diseases all over the world. And it's been a fascinating journey to travel, to see these complicated problems and see how the Holy Spirit can guide you through processes that only they think that well-educated medical people understand. But I've had doctors, I've had scientists and chemists that would just look at me and listen to me with all my broken English, but they would be amazed at the knowledge I had with disease and chemistry and how to treat disease. So that's where I'm at today.
Wow. 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 Mercy. So you met this person and you went to the church and you learned more, and then now you're getting into the word and to learning more about the greatest physician and studying his word. What's next? What happened from there? What about
Well,
the young lady who you were who introduced you to those books?
it really didn't much happen there. She served her purpose. She brought me to Christ, and
Okay.
that was it. Soon after that, I met some brethren that were in present truth, and they taught me the fundamentals of present truth,
Mm-hmm.
of the whole reform part of Adventism that, once again, was all new to me. That's health reform, diet reform, everything. It was just totally new, and uh, that too opened up a great warehouse of knowledge to me. Then I ran a clinic for 20 years, a cancer clinic, and I had over 10 cancer patients a month. And
Mm.
that was quite an experience. I got a chance to really learn a lot. I made a lot of mistakes, but I learned not to make them again. And I written down everything I learned and all the mistakes I made so that I wouldn't have to repeat those mistakes. So
Then
that
when you
was my greatest blessing, yes.
so what would you say was your mistakes? I mean, I'm sure it's not
Well, yeah,
detrimental, but something maybe you could have done another way.
well, you know, I made mistakes both ways. I made mistakes from my religious perspective,
Okay.
and I
Hmm.
made mistakes from my treatment protocol.
Hmm.
I was very aggressive, young and very aggressive. From my religious perspective, everything had to be perfect, right on target. So
Hmm.
consequently, it gendered a spirit of attack, and anytime I saw something that was not straight across the board, I came at it, and I just said, no, that ain't what it's written. And I had continuous warfare with E. Cleveland and Ella Mosley, Ella Ward, and these warriors. And I battled with them because,
Hmm.
I'd seen things that I didn't like. And, uh, but then as the more I got into medical work, the more God showed me that approach was wrong. I
Hmm.
may be right from a word standpoint, but from a spirit perspective, I was absolutely wrong. So
Okay.
God blessed that. I saw that how He healed my relationship with Ella Mosley, which was like a grandfather to me, and Ella Cleveland was like a big brother to me, and Ella Ward was
Mm.
inspired me, and it was just wonderful. And and I thank God before they passed on, we became very close, and I got a chance to work with him and his wife, and so that was good. But then that proceeded on to the health work.
So going back to the disposition, so all of that helped you to where you are now, right?
Yes, it
I'm
helped me.
emphasizing, yeah, I'm emphasizing that because someone may be looking on and see where they have, something that they know if they could do better with or could get rid of, it would help them. So you're here to give them hope that yes, you can change if you're determined to change. And I don't know how you went about it. Maybe prayed. Could you tell them more about what you did to help you get
Well,
rid of?
I mean, some incidents took place to make this happen, especially with Brother Ella Cleveland and Ella Mosley. Um, Ella Cleveland, he was the number one evangelist in all Adventism. He was a mighty warrior, and and, and like I said, I had my battles with him, but eventually, through a brother named David Lee, he introduced Stephen. And introduced me to him from a different perspective. Ella Cleveland was going through some problems with the church because of his stand on him and Ella Dudley's stand on having a black union, and this created a great problem because they was looking at all the other unions, but there was not a black union, and they was advocating for a black union. Many of our Adventist brothers and sisters don't know this, and so this created a problem. And so when they did that, Ella Cleveland, he lost his position as the number one evangelist, and they gave him a position. I'm telling some things that are really the truth. It's somewhat controversial now. I'm
Mhm.
straight off the board when people ask me questions. I don't bite my tongue. But anyway, he lost his position, and he was given a position over at Oakwood, over the ministerial students. And he didn't mind that, but he loved in the field work, doing evangelistic work. So he called David Lee, told him about me, and he asked him, "Can you get him to come and talk to me?" So Brother Lee contacted me, and I went in, to Ella Cleveland's office, and he grabbed me and hugged me, and we kneeled and began to pray right there in his office. And that created a bonding as we converse with each other. Uh, and I'm not going to get too much into
No,
that.
no, you don't have to go into that. But that
But
that alone tells me that you were humbled. You both of you humbled and got on the same page, which is a page of Christ.
now, Elder Mosley, it was a little different. He was the grandfather of all of them, and once again, we had our battles, and uh, he got real sick, and his wife was sick, and they wanted to go up to Nashville to Andre Wilson's health center, and my name just happened to be Wilson also.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody told him about Wilson. Go up to the Wilson's place. Well, he thought he was going to Andre Wilson. They gave him my address in Huntingdon, Tennessee, not Nashville, Tennessee. And this just happened to be on a Friday evening. They pulled up in my driveway one Friday evening before sundown, him and his wife. And I went out to the car to greet them. And when he saw me, he said, "What you doing here?" I said, "I live here." He said, "Where's Andre Wilson?" I said, "Andre Wilson is about 3 hours northeast of here in Nashville, Tennessee." And I invited him in, and he didn't really want to come, but his sweet wife, she was an angel.
Mm-hmm.
She brought him in, and I made him comfortable, and they spent the weekend with me.
Oh, that's
And
nice.
the Lord bless. I mean, we would study and we would talk for hours, and he told me, he said, "Brother Wilson," he said, "I missed my calling. I
Wow.
should have been a medical missionary." So that really was a beautiful thing. I tell you, when I think about that, it brings so much joy. I remember I was in Huntsville, Alabama. They invited me to speak at this church. I want to call the name of the church.
Mm-hmm.
And there was so many people came out. I mean, hundreds of people came out. They didn't have enough seats. And the pastor came and he said, "Brother Wilson, there's a lot of people out there." I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "I think the Lord wanted me to speak today." I said, "It's your church." I said, "Go right ahead." And when he walked out, he introduced me. I sat down. He started preaching.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, I never forget it. Ella Moses stood up and said, "Don't you do this. Don't you do this." Oh, boy, I tell you, that is
That's
amazing.
how close you got to eventually.
I did.
Everything is God. It's God. He worked in his own way. Yes. So tell me a little, because I heard a story about the car. I really have to get that in because that amazes me even now. The car
Well,
you had, what about that car you had?
well, like I said, I had three major demons. One was
Oh,
that car was one, and my clothes was another one, and the art, my
right.
artistic skills, all were demons,
Yeah.
and they possessed me and controlled me. So with the car, I knew I had to get rid of this car. So I asked my my spiritual father, Brother Boatwright, and I'm calling his name.
Uh-huh.
I asked him, I said, "Will you please take these keys and drive this car up in Pulaski, Tennessee, pull it back in the forward part of the wheel in the woods you can, and throw the key away." And I put all my clothes in that car. And he did. He didn't want to do it. He did, and threw the key away. And that's how I got rid of that car.
Wow. Wow.
So with the art, I couldn't worship God because the art kept taking my focus off of it. So I prayed and asked God that he would take the art, the desire of art from me. And he did. For 23 years, I had no burden for art. But then, after that, he gave it back to me, and I could still do it the same way, but I don't have the passion today.
Yes.
So I was free of those demons so I could focus on what God wanted me to
Wanted
do.
you to do. Yes. Yes. Okay. So with all of this, what has been the most challenging part of your life right now up to this part, up to today?
The most challenging part is that sometimes I feel like Elisha. I feel like, me and me alone. uh, is really addressing these really difficult, complicated problems. And it's a deep burden. I mean, uh, if you could just imagine that every day of my life over 50 years, I'm swamped with requests. Help me, Brother Wilson. I got 3 children. I'm in pain. I want to live. I just want to serve God. Help me, help me, help me. And and sometimes I get so exhausted that my heart palpitates when the telephone rings because I
Oh,
know what it is. Nobody
yeah.
called me to just to uplift me or to pray and encourage me. It's always about, can you help me?
Yeah.
And so that's the greatest challenge is trying to inspire other people to take this work up. But it's a different perspective. There are many people will learn the medical missionary work, but there's hardly any will take up the medical missionary physician work. It's two
Mm,
different callings. And the
yeah.
physician demands all of your time, your social life, everything. Everything's committed in helping people. And in order to be able to do it at this level, you got to give it all to God. And that's where it discourages people from doing it.
So
That's
right,
my
right,
greatest.
right, right where you are there now. So continue. Give us a few tips of for someone
Okay.
to really get to do this and to do this well according to God's will. What would you suggest? I'm listening to you, and I mean the audience is listening to you too. What would you say from your experience? You've already told us, but I want you to now tabulate them to me. What would
Okay.
you suggest? Mm-hmm.
From just from where I'm right now,
Mm-hmm.
in Trinidad, I'm supposed to be there training the people to be medical missionary physicians. There's so many people from the community are coming out. With a 16-year-old girl got terminal liver cancer. The
Wow.
doctors have given up on her. I got another man got prostate cancer. Another lady got cancer, oral cancer of the mouth, big tumor in her mouth, big as a grapefruit. It had
Wow.
metastasized all of in her sinus cavity, spread it from her lungs. She crying for help. I got another 2 ladies with cervical cancer, another with breast cancer, and then got brain cancer. And every day they keep coming in. I come over to Barbados. They find out I'm here. Same thing take place. People calling, needing help. The biggest stressful part of it is financially, you can't help these people. Most of them are financially exhausted. Their strength is gone, and they don't have the finance to be able to purchase the supplies to help themselves. And you got to try to do something. And it is a tough situation.
Wow.
And we need places. We need places. We need facilities. We
Like a
need
center.
you
Mm-hmm.
do you need it. We have lifestyle centers.
Mm-hmm.
The lifestyle centers are not equipped to deal with these problems. And so there need to be people willing to take a risk on incarceration, risk to do whatever it takes to help somebody. And we just don't see many of those kind of people.
Mm. Now that you're talking, and
Is
it's I feel this thing
finding
in my
a
belly because
precious
go ahead, go ahead, sir.
find a precious few, find a precious few that really want to go to another level. We've come to a time when every member of the church is to be a medical missionary. And every one of us is called to do that, but only a few is called to be medical missionary physicians. And that entails more than just being a medical missionary.
What would that the difference be between a medical missionary and a medical missionary physician?
Well, he's got to learn uh, as much or more than a medical doctor. He
Mm.
really has, without medical school. He's got to understand how to read medical records. He got to understand how to read the lab reports. He's got to understand simple form of chemistry, how to put together formulas that can compete with pharmaceuticals. Give you for instance, you take the strongest um, chemo drug that is made. One of the strongest is called Taxol. It's made from the Pacific yew tree. They take 120 pounds of Taxol leaves to make 16 ounces of Taxol chemical to make it, a chemo drug. Well, everybody, all of us know that Taxol definitely can retard, slow down, and kill cancer cells. The same thing with periwinkle. But when you make it, you mostly make it a tea out of it. But you need to learn how to extract the essential nutrients, make the strength 10 to 20 times stronger than what you get in a cup of tea.
Mm.
And knowing that you don't get it so strong that it become a cytotoxic drug.
To deliver. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So this is where the studying come to a roadblock, because that takes hours and hours of studying that plant, the essential phytochemicals of that plant, doing research, studying lab reports to try to see when will it become a cytotoxic drug, when it will not. Because you don't want to make chemo, but you want to make something so close that it will be more effective on abnormal and cancer cells. And that area, learning some form of surgery, because I read that every medical missionary physician should know some form of simple surgery, knowing that, how to perform that, understand the human body, the function of the human body.
You're breaking up.
Yeah, studying food and body chemistry.
Okay. All right. Wow. Okay, so let's move on now because I know you're busy. So we're gonna be closing soon. But you tell us about your life recently. You went through because your wife died, right?
She did. Mm-hmm.
She did. And there's something, I don't know if you want to share that.
I don't mind. I don't mind.
don't-
But I'm going to
don't.
move back in. I was outside. My battery's getting a little weak, but I'm gonna move back
Okay,
inside.
so
Mhm.
move back slowly while we continue the conversation. Well, wow. Okay. You'll get back, yes. So what we're going to talk about now is about his first wife who died. And this man has been through so much, but he just keeps praising the Lord. I think he's ready now. Let's have him back. Okay, great. So,
Yeah.
so I just wanted to ask you because I know when I met you, I met your wife as well. I remember being at one of the medical missionary class, and I actually gave you all the vote of thanks after the medical missionary training. That was the last time I saw her. And when I heard that she passed away, I just couldn't I don't know, I just couldn't stop thinking about it. And I kept thinking about you and how you would, how you would be able to cope. Because I know she was really working with you hand in hand in this ministry. Tell us more about when it happened, how you coped and how you're coping now and how you're coping now. And the new life you're living now. And then I think we'll come to the end of the the interview.
It was tough. It was really tough
And
because
just imagine.
I didn't realize just how much my life was blended into hers because I took things for granted, We spent 25 wonderful years together.
Wow.
And I tell people this over and over again to try to inspire them if they're in a relationship. 25 years, we never argued. We never fussed.
Wow.
We never raised our voice. My son, he lived with us until he got up in his teens before she died about 4 or 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
He's 22 now.
Yes.
He never, ever heard our voice elevated in the house. We promised God we would never do it because we want him to grow up in a home, a peaceful home. And so when she passed away, I knew that I could never marry again because there's no way you never find another woman like that. And
Right.
so I was reserved to forget about that. Well, to give you an idea, when she was helping me do a training school, and she told me that her head felt funny and the back of her neck felt funny, and she had a headache. So I
Mm-hmm.
didn't think nothing of it. I knew she was born with Graves' disease, which is hypothyroid.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, she would she would have these thyroid storms, and so I told her just lay down. I'm gonna go back and teach the class. And I was in the class teaching, and one of the workers came and said, "Come quick, something is wrong." So when I got there, she was semi-unconscious.
Mm.
I picked her up. I knew at that point there was nothing I could do. I picked her up, put her in the car, tried to rush her to the emergency room, and on the way there, she passed away. And we got her there. They hooked up on the machine, and for a whole week, she was on the life machine, and I was there every moment. And eventually, they told me that everything was gone. She was gone. There's nothing they could do. And
Mm-hmm.
so her body chilled down, began to get stiff, and they put in this bag that keep you warm. So family members had to come from out of town to see her. So uh, she was still in the hospital, uh, and two of her best friends came, to say goodbye to her.
Yes.
So it was three of us in the room, and one of the girls was in the back at the foot of the bed. Other one was on the left hand side. I was on the right, and I had told God, I said, God, if you don't raise her up, I'm finished. I said, I've done all this work, all these years. At least you could raise her up for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know that I was working for to be hired. I mean, be paid. I didn't recognize that everything I had done all those years was a hired servant. And it wasn't about my love of God. It was about that I was thinking God owed me. And so I threatened him. I said, I'm serious. I'm finished. And, uh, and I tell people this so they can see how compassionate our Savior is. That moment, the machine lit back up. The life machine lit up like a Christmas tree. She raised up and grabbed Catherine's hand and squeezed it. And then with her right hand, she grabbed my hand and raised up and looked at me and squeezed it tight. Then she fell, closed her eyes, and she was gone. And at that point, I knew God had answered my prayer. He brought her back to say goodbye to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I could continue doing the work. So, and I thank God for it. I have recovered from that now.
Mm.
I
Yes.
met my new wife, which I didn't think would ever happen, but we on our road for our next 25 years. We've been married now 2 years and never had a debate, argument, or fussing or nothing. She is sweet as my first wife. So,
Wow.
but it takes two to do that.
Yes. Yes.
And just quenching anger, raising your voice. Just quench it before it starts. And love is greater than anger.
Yes.
And so I thank God for my new life. I'm enjoying it.
Good
It's
for you. Happy for you. Happy for you. God provided that. Is that Sherilyn?
It is, yes.
That God provided Sherilyn for you because He knew you. He said in His Word, He needs. We all need someone with us, especially if we're like-minded. So that we can finish the work.
I just
Listen.
want to say something
Okay. Go
about
ahead.
my son before we close.
Mhm.
My son Zebulon is an unusual young. Children are unusual, but I know he was a gift of God, and I know, and I
Zelubam. Zelubam, right?
Zebulon.
Zebulon. Okay, let
Mhm.
me get it right.
I was in my 50s. We're in my 50s when he was born. His mother was in her almost late, in her 40s.
Wow.
But anyway, he was brought forth And he is a special young man. I mean, he took on the characteristics of his mother and me, and God showed me that I'm going to give him to replace you. And that's exactly what it is. He is so knowledgeable in the medical missionary work, and he has such a passion for it.
Yes.
And his sensitivity is much more greater than me, because I had a lot of garbage I had to get out of my life. He don't have to do that. So I thank God for him. I could not do this work without him. I really couldn't. So
Right.
mhm.
So I'm glad. I'm glad. I remember the last time I met him was the same time that I was telling you that I did the medical training there in Brooklyn. Yes, I saw him, and at the time. Yes. So we want to thank you so much for taking the time, for coming and being so transparent. You know, and to just stop from working for a little and just to come and share your story. And your story, I know when others listen, they will, those listening now and those who will come and listen again, they will be blessed because of your compelling story. Now, thank you so much. Anything you want to say before you go?
Well, I want to just say this last closing thought is
Go
that
ahead. Go ahead.
many of us will face challenges in life when we feel like we have no other alternative but chemo, radiation, and surgery. But God has a much better alternative. God has taught us how to perform all of those different tasks without the cytotoxic effect. We have developed herbal chemo, which is an herbal base, more effective, I think, than chemotherapy without cytotoxin. We developed over 200 different formulas to different diseases. We also developed a technique I call herbal surgery, where we can perform surgery without actually cutting a person with a knife. And this is, to me, is when done right, it is fascinating to be able to see that you can pull a tumor out without cutting a person by just using the chemistry and herbs and minerals and using the body ability to expel a mass out of it. And understanding the perfect balance chemistry of the body. That has been a great blessing. And I encourage young men and women, focus and give yourself fully to him, and he'll open up to you a warehouse of knowledge how you can help humanity.
Yes, thank you so much. And one day we will meet your son, your wife, and yourself again to have a talk sometime. All right. So thank you so much for being here. All the best. All the best. Thank you.
You too, sis.
Thank you. Wow. I felt like I was, sitting. I've always, when I'm talking to this man, feel humbled to be in his presence because of how much he knows and how humble he is. I trust you all felt the same way as I did today. I always leave a thought, but I'm going to leave a thought from the biggest book of thoughts. I'm going to leave from the Bible. And it's taken from Revelation 22, verse 2. It said, in the midst of the street of it, and on either side of the river, was there the tree of life, which bare 12 manners of fruits, and yielded her fruit every month, and the leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nations. It was so nice being here again. Let me say goodbye and hope to see you again. To all those who have never subscribed, please take the opportunity and do so. Even you might want to like or to share this episode today. Again, thank you, Dr. Mana Wilson, for being here as our guest.